Everyone laughed at the poor bride the moment she stepped off the train. Her dress was worn, her suitcase nearly empty, and the man who had promised to marry her never came. But while the crowd mocked her, one wealthy rancher saw something no one else could: a heart more valuable than gold. What happened after he offered her a single act of kindness changed both of their lives forever. Stay until the end, because this unforgettable Wild West story proves that true beauty can never be hidden. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming Wild West stories filled with hope, courage, and unforgettable endings. The evening train hissed to a stop beneath the glowing orange sky, filling the quiet frontier station with clouds of white steam. Travelers stepped onto the wooden platform, greeted by waiting families and hopeful smiles. But one young woman remained standing alone beside a worn leather suitcase. Her faded white dress had been patched so many times that it barely resembled a bridal gown anymore. Dust covered the hem, and the long journey had left her exhausted. Yet she still held herself with quiet dignity. She had crossed hundreds of miles because a rancher she had written letters to had promised to marry her and give her a new beginning. Minutes turned into an hour, and the crowd slowly realized no one had come for her. Whispering spread through the station. Some laughed, claiming no respectable man would choose a bride dressed like that. Others mocked her poverty and suggested she return home before nightfall. Every cruel word cut deeper than the last, but she refused to answer. Instead, she quietly picked up her suitcase and stepped away from the crowd, determined not to let strangers see her cry. Across the platform, another man had watched everything in silence. Nathan Hale was one of the wealthiest ranchers in the territory, though few travelers recognized him. His success had never changed his humble heart. Years of hard work had earned him thousands of acres, healthy cattle, and the respect of every honest rancher in the valley. Yet wealth had not protected him from loneliness after losing the woman he once hoped to marry. Watching the abandoned bride reminded him of how quickly people judge appearances while ignoring character. He noticed the way she thanked the station porter who had carried her suitcase, even though she had no money to tip him. He noticed how she smiled at a frightened little boy who had fallen nearby, helping him stand before quietly walking away. Those simple acts revealed more about her heart than expensive clothes ever could. Nathan finally stepped forward and politely introduced himself. The young woman, whose name was Clara, expected another insult, but instead he offered her supper and a safe place to rest until she decided what to do next. She hesitated, unsure whether she could trust another stranger after being abandoned so cruelly. Nathan calmly told her she owed him nothing and could leave whenever she wished. His words carried no pity, only genuine respect. For the first time since arriving, Clara felt someone saw her as a person instead of a burden. She accepted his offer, unaware that this quiet rancher possessed more wealth than anyone standing on that platform. As the setting sun disappeared behind the distant hills, two lonely souls walked away from the station together, beginning a journey neither of them could have imagined. The next morning, Eleanor woke before sunrise and quietly swept the porch, fetched water from the well, and prepared breakfast using the little food she had brought with her. She never asked for expensive clothes or comfort. Instead, she worked beside the ranch hands, tended the chickens, planted flowers around the old cabin, and slowly filled the once lonely ranch with warmth. The townspeople whispered that the wealthy rancher had made a foolish decision by welcoming such a poor bride, but Nathan ignored every cruel word. He watched how Eleanor comforted an injured ranch worker, shared meals with hungry travelers, and treated every person with kindness, whether rich or poor. One afternoon, a violent storm struck the valley, flooding part of the ranch. Without hesitation, Eleanor risked herself to rescue frightened calves trapped near the creek. Nathan found her soaked with rain, shivering but smiling, because every animal had survived. In that moment, he realized the treasure everyone else had overlooked was standing before him. Her strength did not come from wealth or beauty. It came from her compassionate heart. As the gossip faded, the town slowly began to admire the woman they had once rejected, and Nathan knew that true riches could never be measured by money, but by the goodness a person carries within. The following morning, the first rays of sunlight spilled across Nathan Hale's ranch, painting the rolling hills in shades of gold. Eleanor awoke before anyone else. She quietly folded the blanket she had borrowed, swept the cabin floor, and carried 2 empty buckets to the well without being asked. She believed that kindness should always be repaid with honest work. By the time Nathan returned from feeding the horses, the smell of fresh bread drifted through the cabin, and a warm breakfast waited on the table. He paused in surprise. The lonely house that had echoed with silence for years suddenly felt alive again. Eleanor simply smiled and thanked him for allowing her to stay another day. Nathan noticed she never complained about her simple room, the worn furniture, or the endless chores. Instead, she treated every task as though she had been given a precious gift. Throughout the following weeks, Eleanor became an important part of the ranch. She repaired torn curtains, planted vegetables in the neglected garden, mended the ranch hands' worn shirts, and even stitched warm blankets for the older workers before winter arrived. The horses quickly trusted her gentle touch, and even the shy farm dogs followed her wherever she walked. She never asked Nathan for expensive dresses or jewelry. She only asked for opportunities to work and earn her place. Her quiet strength impressed everyone who truly took the time to know her. Unfortunately, not everyone judged people by their character. Whenever Nathan visited the nearby frontier town, whispers followed him through the streets. Some wealthy landowners laughed behind his back, saying he had brought home a beggar instead of a proper bride. Others claimed Eleanor only wanted his fortune. One afternoon, while purchasing supplies at the general store, another ranch owner loudly mocked Nathan in front of everyone. "With all your land and cattle," the man sneered, "you could have married any wealthy lady in the territory. Instead, you chose a poor girl with patched clothes." The store fell silent. Every customer waited to hear Nathan's reply. He calmly placed his supplies on the counter before looking directly at the man. "Money can buy land," Nathan said quietly, "but it cannot buy honesty, kindness, or courage. Eleanor has more of those than anyone I've ever met." No one spoke another word. Even the shopkeeper smiled quietly as Nathan walked away with his dignity untouched. Eleanor learned about the conversation later that evening from one of the ranch hands. She lowered her eyes, ashamed that Nathan had been ridiculed because of her. She offered to leave the ranch so people would stop talking. Nathan gently shook his head. People who judge by clothing rarely understand the value of character. He told her, "This is your home as long as you wish it to be." His words touched Eleanor more deeply than any expensive gift ever could. A few days later, heavy rainstorms swept across the valley. A section of the cattle pasture flooded, trapping several frightened calves near the swollen creek. Before anyone could react, Eleanor grabbed a rope and rushed into the cold water to help guide the animals toward higher ground. Nathan and the ranch hands hurried after her. By the time the storm passed, every calf had been saved, though Eleanor stood soaked, exhausted, and shivering in the rain. Nathan wrapped his own coat around her shoulders and looked at her with newfound admiration. She had risked everything without thinking of herself. News of her bravery spread quickly throughout the valley. The same townspeople who had laughed at her arrival now praised her courage and compassion. One by one, they realized the wealthy rancher had seen something precious from the very beginning, a beautiful heart hidden beneath a simple dress. Nathan smiled quietly, knowing true beauty had never depended on appearances. It had always lived inside the woman everyone else had been too blind to see.